I started to research the path to being an astronaut, and I knew, becoming maybe a test pilot was one way to do that. And as I was kind of progressing through high school, I was getting some good grades, so I was able to get into the University of Illinois' aeronautical engineering program, and which was that was a nice feat for me because they was second to MIT at the time.
Yeah.
So, and it was a state school, so cool, go down there and do that. And so I started pursuing that for a couple of years. So I got down to U of I and going through the aeronautical engineering program and really kind of seeing what it would take to do all that stuff.
Right.
And at the same time, I was also playing music more. And I just playing in bands down there, just, obviously just starting to kind of get some attention. And that was when I really, really decided, okay, while I love, space and the thoughts of being an astronaut, I much prefer music. It's what comes naturally to me. It's what speaks to me.
Yeah.
So after my sophomore year at U of I transferred out to Columbia College, downtown Chicago, and full-time started pursuing music in college, and then eventually made my way west to get that University of real life experience and get after it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's such a pivotal moment in our lives, especially at that age, right? Late teens, just about to break 20.
Yep.
We want to, a lot about what we talk about, what I talk about is potential. And so when I think about that, at that age, we're still so impressionable, and we do things based on what we think other people want. It's inevitable, right? We're just being downloaded things throughout high school and everything that we see around us. And so many people don't really truly know what they want. And they go to school, and this is all coming out now, right? Over 80% of people don't even use their degree.
Yep.
And then you ask a company, well, what does a degree even mean anymore? Like, well, it shows that you have dedication. It's like, well, what about if you're an entrepreneur dedicated to working on fixing problems for decades? You don't think that's dedication, or having a family that you've been with and taken care of? So I think it's a poor. I don't think it's a good barometer anymore of what dedication means.
Sure.
But back to the point is, like, it's such a pivotal time at that age. So for you to actually recognize through all that clutter and to even say, something that you were very interested in, being an astronaut, you were able to make a crystal clear decision at that point to say you wanted to do music. It's pretty admirable, because I didn't do it. There's a lot of things I knew what I wanted to do, and I was in the military at that time, and I didn't want to. I really didn't. I thought I knew what I wanted, but that all changed.
Of course, and let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. It wasn't easy, and it was very difficult. I'd say I always call the years of age 20 to about age 26 the couch tour years. That's when I really, really started getting into, just, first of all, the culture shock of coming out of Chicago to Las Vegas and eventually, Southern California, dealing with that. Really not knowing too many people, making the leap to get up to LA, living by myself, not knowing a soul, and just trying to find my way. It was difficult. And obviously I made it, but
well, I think think it's a really good point, though. I want to piggyback on that. So you did all that. You had the couch tour years. It's difficult. You don't know anybody. You're in a new place. You made a decision to do this industry and to work in this industry. So what is it then that most people see that makes them quit or fail, right? In the music industry, especially. I mean, the there are so many people out there doing it. And now with YouTube and phones, it's even more pervasive in our world. So what do you think the most common reason is for people just failing or giving up in music? Why do they just put the instruments down and walk away?
I think either because they don't see the monetary return right away, or as they're pursuing their career, they just kind of get some questions answered for themselves, and they define what success is to them a little clearer, and maybe that's not going to reside in their current path. I knew from the jump that this was what I was going to do. I love the film Gattaca. And there was a part in there where Ethan Hawke and I think his brother or whoever was playing his brother in that role, they were kind of swimming out to a buoy in the middle of the lake.
It's a good scene.
I love it. Exactly. Yeah, they're swimming out to the buoy, and so the kind of like genetically dominant brother lost, and and Ethan is the genetically inferior one, but he wins, and he turns to his brother and says, I never left anything for the swim back. It was always to the goal. And I always kept that with me, and it's been incredibly difficult. But I think what separates the people that are successful from those who aren't, and we can define that however you want. And I even kind of hate saying that, because we all find success on some level. Right. So I don't like putting that out there, but I think, it's difficult. A friend of mine named Carlos Diggs, he exposed me to Les Brown, and
great guy.
I love Les Brown, and Les Brown says life is hard, so you're just gonna have to give yourself permission to do it hard. And it almost takes some pressure off. You're like, okay, this is hard, and it's gonna take a lot of work, but that's okay. And so I think when we're really getting down to pursuing our dreams, it's very difficult. And
isn't it a commitment, though? It's like it's making that decision. And like you said, I didn't leave anything for the road back. Right. I'm going just in the movie Gattaca, right? I'm going after the goal. And it's so similar to what you're talking about with yourself. You did that through those Couch Tour years. You made the decision, but you committed no matter what. Like that's really what it's about, isn't it?
I agree. And, everybody kind of has a fallback plan B, and I think that's okay. I was the extreme. I did all the plan Bs while I was pursuing the other thing. I went in, I worked in restaurants, I valeted, I worked temp jobs, I answered phone at mortgage companies. I mean, I worked
your ends meet.
At hotels. Like, I did every other possible thing to help me pursue my dream. And I knew, and every time I did those jobs, nothing was better than my dream. So I actually recommend people go try those other things, and then if you're still thinking about music, if you're like me, like doing a data entry job, but I go to the bathroom to sing into my voice recorder or look up something about a certain microphone, then maybe you know what you need to be doing.
It's a really good point. And, I forget who I heard talking about this, but I thought it was perfect. I love the term transitional jobs. Mm-hmm. And he was just saying, it's another influencer out there. And he said at some point he knew what his dream was. And he, as an entrepreneur and as a speaker and an influencer and working in business, but he said, I sold sheets. He sold sheets.
Yep.
Right. Literally sold sheets. And then he said, but it's okay. Sometimes you hit transitional jobs. So that's back to what I was saying, the commitment. It's about making the commitment up front and having integrity to that commitment and saying, no, even when it gets hard, I am going to stick with this and go through it. And then, it just goes back to that again. It's like, do you want to make more money and be unhappy or less money and be happy and fulfilled? All right. Well, Josh, I want to thank you for coming on today. And for everyone out there who is just being introduced to Josh, I'd highly recommend you check him out. He is a very talented musician. He really has worked with people all around the world. I might have said a little bit too much about the Grammys. Hey, that's that part that he's still working on. But he has worked with some Grammy Award-winning artists, which is an honor in itself. Yep. So, again, I want to say thank you, Josh, for coming on today. It's always a pleasure talking with you. Look forward to hitting the links with you here pretty soon. And everybody else, you make sure you be fearless.
Thanks, MJ. Really appreciate it.
I want to thank Josh again for coming on the program today. All the music in the background, except for the obvious ones, were a sample of his songs. You can find him at all the places he had mentioned, as well as iTunes. This is part 1 of a 2-part series. Please come back next episode and listen as Josh explains exactly what his thought patterns were and what they are to get him to owning his true potential.